First of all, congratulations to John Ibbitson. It's a great book. Thoroughly enjoyed it, learned a hell of a lot. And I want to start with this. There's a quote from your book. Stephen Harper would become leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, but he would never be a Tory. What are you saying there?
One of the things that formed Stephen Harper when he was very young was the dichotomy within Ontario political culture that his own family felt and expressed and resented. And that the dichotomy was between what used to be called the family compact, what some of us now call the Laurentian elites, the people in the academic and business and cultural pinnacle in the city of Toronto and in other cities in Ontario, who ran the province and in fact ran the country. And then others, sort of the inheritors of the old reform tradition, who lived in the countryside, who were farmers, who resented these elites telling them what to do and not allowing them to, for example, have free trade with the Americans, which is what they wanted. Stephen Harper, when he was a young boy, would go up to his grandparents' farm up in Grey Bruce, and he would hear from his grandparents stories about how they resented all these British toffs who ran the place. They were the real Tories. And whether they actually belonged to the Progressive Conservative Party, as it then was, or the Liberal Party, for him, they were always Tories. And he pretty much devoted the rest of his political life in opposition to them.
So when Stephen Harper looks back at the government of Brian Mulroney, Progressive Conservative Tory government, or the short-lived government of Joe Clark in 1979, Progressive Conservative Tory government, how were those governments different from the kind of government, non-Tory government, that he's running?
Well, they were profoundly different. Of course, he hated the Mulroney government. And one of the lines in the book was, everyone in Ottawa was liberal, especially the Conservatives. Because the Progressive Conservative Party inherited the same broad intellectual tradition as the Liberal Party. It had the same priorities, essentially, as the Liberal Party. Its legislative agenda was, for the main, it was interchangeable with the Liberal Party. It did not understand the West any better than did the Liberal Party. And by then, Stephen Harper had gone West and embraced sort of alienated, reform-inspired political culture that said these guys are running the place, but A, they're running into the ground, and B, they won't listen to us. And so he was one of the very early founders of the Reform Party with Preston Manning that was set up basically in opposition to them. And ultimately, when he merged the Canadian Alliance, which he was leading, with the Progressive Conservative Party, he essentially destroyed that tradition within the Conservative Party as it now exists.
Which makes me ask, Sir John A. Macdonald's Conservative Party of 1867, is that Stephen Harper's Conservative Party of 2015?
I would say no. I would say that the Conservative Party that Stephen Harper created with the merger of the Progressive Conservatives is a unique political animal. It is the first genuinely conservative political party the country has ever had.
Having said that, has Stephen Harper governed as a conservative?
In the main, yes. There are some ideological purists out there, I know, who think that he's not sufficiently conservative.
Well, he bought a couple of car companies. That's not a very conservative thing to do.
He did, but he gave them back. He has reduced the size of the government. The fiscal footprint of the federal government is the same today as it was in the days of John Diefenbaker.
Biggest deficits of all time.
In the middle of a financial emergency, but then he got the country back into balance faster, and he lowered taxes, especially the GST, and he completely reshaped, and I think this is where he doesn't get nearly enough credit. There's a lot in the book where I'm critical of him, but one area where I think he deserves a lot of credit is ending the wars between Ottawa and the provinces. We've had, for the first time, I think in your and my lifetime, 10 years of peace between Ottawa and the provinces because he stopped getting in their face, stopped interfering with them.
Does that overstate it? 10 years of peace? I look at Kathleen Wynne and Stephen Harper, I don't see much peace there.
A tiff here, a tiff there, and there was Danny Williams in Newfoundland and Labrador. But you compare that to the decades of will Quebec stay, will Quebec leave, the profound Western alienation that we had in the 1990s, the massive federal provincial conferences, the last one on healthcare, for example, where all we were doing was arguing amongst ourselves as to how the place should best be run. We don't argue about that anymore, and Stephen Harper has can take a fair amount of credit for that.